the entertainment highlight of the week.
Red Ray Gun Limited presents
The Benji and Nick Show.
Hello.
Hello.
Time now for the executive version of the Loch Ness game.
Yes, executive version, right. Are you ready? Standing by?
Standing by.
Good, okay, right. Good morning.
Good day.
Good evening.
Good afternoon.
Good tidings we bring to you and the king.
Good gravy.
Good to be here.
Goodness me, it's nearly over.
Goodness gracious me, it's nearly over.
Goodness.
Loch Ness. There we go. Ha, ha, ha.
There we are. Yes, this is
Marvellous.
the Benji and Nick Show. And that was the Loch Ness game, the executive version. It's not about Loch Ness. It's not a game. And it certainly wasn't very executive.
It's just a way of life. It's existence. It's, once you've tried it, you can't not do it. That's the thing. But if you're just listening, this is the Benji and Nick Show. We talk about cult television, TV from the past, TV you might remember, TV you might want to forget, and some TV that you've just never heard of. We have a little look at it and see whether or not we like it all these years later. That's pretty much it, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I'm not Benji.
I'm not Nick.
And we sometimes do a bit of commentary, usually of Doctor Who, exclusively of Doctor Who, actually. And we most often set ourselves a programme to watch between podcasts and then discuss it in the next podcast. And sometimes we just talk about what we've been watching in general. We always read out your emails. Yes, this week we're talking about the BBC TV series of Paul Temple, created by Francis Durbridge, the famous thriller writer. It started in 1969. I don't know whether it was broadcast in 69 or certainly filmed in 1969. The episode we're talking about is allegedly the first one, or maybe it's the first surviving one. I'm not sure. It's called Games People Play.
It's the first surviving one, I believe.
Is it?
I think it's from series 2. No
Wow.
less.
So they did do some black and white ones, did they, before or something?
I believe so. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of it is lost.
Yes.
Yeah, Paul Temple series 2 Games People Play.
Wow.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like
This
an
was
introductory
1970. This was Sunday, 19th of April, 1970.
episode. When it was shown. We'll also be attempting to chat to Jamie, son of Jerry Anderson, for no good reason. We chatted to him earlier on, actually. We hope he'll still be there. You weren't listening when we were chatting to him earlier on. We'll be reading out your emails sent to podcast@nicholasbriggs.com, and then we'll be deciding what we're going to do next week. Just also want to mention Colin Smith, who does our beautiful magazine-style covers.
Talented guy.
The latest one is in the style of the BBC Paul Temple DVD release, with sort of, those squares and rectangles.
The squares
with
of
the
rectangles, funky fonts, and
yes, it's rather good. And Colin, we should say, is just a diamond geezer. He just popped out of nowhere a while ago and just started doing these things for us, which we're incredibly grateful for. He's a lovely chap, isn't he?
He's definitely a real part of the podcast. He's central to what we do. A lovely chap, and he's one of those wonderful creative people that when you think you can't top what he's done the previous week, he'll just deliver something completely superb, and you just think, wow, this guy, he knows what he's doing. He knows what he's doing.
Lovely, isn't it? Yeah. That's why it's always worth going to nicholasbriggs.com to have a look at the podcast. But anyway, you can get it through all your podcast apps and providers and what have you, and it's on YouTube as well. And it's distributed by Libsyn, I believe. Yes. First up, then, your emails. Should I read this one? I don't know.
Yeah, go for it.
This was the subject is model railways, and it was sent on the 4th of November in the year 1848.
Good year.
It was from David Gorton. And he says, Nick and Benji, I know the conversation was on the other podcast. That's the Big Finish podcast, bigfinish.com. But I was struck by your comments about model railways and a lack of space. Yes, that's right. We got into a long conversation about Vickers and model railways, didn't we? The solution is back garden railways.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah.
This is not my thing, but my dad built his when I was a child in the 80s. It uses real steam engines in miniature. Oh, this is brilliant. This is a YouTube video from a couple of years ago. Right, I've got to watch this now.
Gorgeous, absolutely.
You've already
gorgeous.
clicked it, have you?
Yeah, I'm well ahead of you. Just beautiful. One thing I always love about model railways and things is when people weather things to make them look older. It just adds so much depth to things.
Oh, wow.
That is wonderful, isn't it? Just absolutely gorgeous.
Oh, he's used the word plethora. Well, I'm not going to spend the rest of this podcast just watching.
I could. I really could. I really could spend
trains.
5 minutes on that video watching this because it's just gorgeous. Oh, I'd love it. In another world, when I retire.
Well, he managed to make his hobby his career, editing magazines about it for years, all in a bog-standard terrace house in Cornwall. No huge loft space required. Sorry, it's a bit off the usual topic. Love the podcast in general, particularly if I've seen what you're discussing, which is not often, unless it's Doctor Who, of course. And Benji is right, The Tripods is a great series. Regards, Dave Gorson. Oh, you had to get that in, didn't you? You just leave it. I saw Andrew Smith again last night, and he was, he who wrote Full Circle. Andrew Full Circle Smith is what we really call him, to his face. And he said, "Oh God, I just loved it when you hated the tripods."
It's an ongoing thing. I love the fact that this debate is still continuing now.
It's the only real area of disagreement between us, isn't it, really?
Definitely, yeah, it's the only one, which is fine, it's important. It's important to do so. But fortunately, we agree on model railways, and that's the important thing.
Very chuffed about that.
Oh, very good. I was also very sad when you got the Garden Railway there. My friend Brian, who I knew years and years ago, he moved away. I think he moved to Mullion.
Where's that?
I think it's in Cornwall, actually. So
Brian
Goff, his name was.
Maybe he visited Dave Gorton's dad.
Well, this is it. This is what I said. But I've not heard from Brian since he moved away. But he was a lovely guy, and he had this amazing railway in his attic, and I think now he's got a garden railway. And and he's done all of that. He used to have a boating lake where he had remote controlled boats. It was just so, and he had one I remember that was powered by oil or something. You pour oil in and it goes. It's so good.
Well, you see, all this comes from the same sort of love of old telly and stuff, because it's about creating little stories, isn't it? It's about creating little worlds, and that's why there's a sort of crossover here, I feel.
I think so. I definitely think so. It's and days gone by as well, because obviously the vast majority. I wonder how many people have got Southern Railway as the modern version, which they say right, the 2 o'clock will come in, and it's approximately delayed, and then they'll pop out for some lunch, come back, and then run the service.
Can't resist a dig at Southern Rail.
Shots fired. And the next email here is War of the Worlds by Mark Crozer. He didn't write War of the World. The email's War of the Worlds.
Oh, I see. Thanks for explaining.
Yeah. It was sent on the 3rd of the 11th, 2019 at 18:08.
Good year.
Very good year, isn't it? We're getting very much a sort of that 1800 sort of vibes in these emails so far today.
People get home from work and decide to send an email to us. That's what happens. Yeah.
Hello chaps, enjoying your show as usual, particularly the War of the Worlds chat. Like you, I also thought the Tom Cruise version was great, although I remember seeing it at the cinema and finding it very harrowing viewing. I was literally on the edge of my seat throughout the entire movie. One scene that really freaked me out was near the beginning, when the aliens first appear. There's a shot when everyone is running away, and for a brief moment they're shown one of the creatures reflected in the car window as Tom Cruise's character taking shelter. Something about the reflection was totally eerie and unnerving in a way I can't quite explain. I see that there's a new adaptation of War of the Worlds coming to the BBC soon, which is set in Victorian England. Looks great. Wondering whether you might do an episode on Twin Peaks at some point. Best wishes, Mark Crozer.
Well, First of all, I'd like to apologise, insinuating that Mark sent this after work, because he sent it on a Sunday. The 3rd was a Sunday. So
Could be working on a Sunday.
Could be. Yes, that's true. But it is the Lord's Day. Peter Harness has written the War of the Worlds adaptation, dramatisation, coming to the BBC this month. Peter Harness wrote a few Doctor Who scripts under Stephen Moffat as executive producer. And also, I've met him a couple of times, and he's good friends with my friend Rob Shearman. And Rob has seen all of it and thinks it's very good, very hard-hitting, very dark. So we look forward to that. I'm particularly interested, Benji, in the way you said Twin Peaks, because for those of us who saw it the first time round, although I stopped watching it because it just got so weird, I got sick of it, we called it Twin Peaks, and you called it Twin Peaks.
I don't know. I didn't really think about it, to be honest.
No. It's
Twin
interesting,
Peaks.
isn't it? Maybe
Twin Peaks. Twin Peaks.
As opposed to single peak. I don't know whether I could... I suppose I should force myself to watch it again. I remember liking the first few episodes.
Never seen it. There's a surprise.
David Lynch, isn't it? Is it David Lynch?
Who's brilliant.
Yeah.
Yes, it's David Lynch and Mark Frost.
That's right. And David Lynch just... have you ever seen Blue Velvet?
No.
That's a very disturbing film. And David Lynch is absolutely bonkers, I think, because there's at the end of Blue Velvet, there's a bird singing on a fence, and it is clearly a fake wooden bird operated by strings or something. And when questioned about it, David Lynch won't admit that it's not a real bird. He just says that's how the bird characterised its performance. I'm sure I've said this before. Anyway, on to the next email. It's a note from Tom Hodden to your Facebook page, The Benji and Nick Show Cult TV Podcast. Yeah. And this was sent back on the 27th of October at 8:19. Tom, he says, gents, I've just talked to the lawyers, and apparently we can't just make new episodes of Who Do You Think You Are without all that complex licensing guff. But Dave will absolutely be interested in our completely original format, Were You Born in a Barn or What?, in which a selection of celebrity guests will learn shocking revelations about their past. Admittedly, your list of celebrities, from Sir Ian McKellen, Dame Judy and Her Majesty the Queen, were a little difficult to convince, but I think Basil Brush, Virgil Tracy and Mr. Blobby might surprise you, not least because I have made sure at least one of them is tied to Jack the Ripper by shocking soon-to-be-discovered documents.
It was definitely Mr. Blobby.
Yeah, definitely. Alas, your other suggested project, Let's Contact the Spirits of Celebrities and Interview Them by Ouija Board, infringes on a show already in production, even if we do add puppets. Kind regards, T.E. Hodden. Thank you, Thomas.
That'd be rather lovely, yeah. Clever stuff always there from Thomas Hodden there. Personally, I think Roland the Rat did it. Yeah.
There was it on Spitting Image? They did. Everyone was getting really annoyed by Roland Rat, and they just did a sketch where there was just a really rubbish Roland Rat, nothing like Roland Rat, going yeah, and then just they hit it with a plank with a nail in, and just said, "Shut up, you bastards!" That was all the satire they could manage on that. Anyway, look, I'm holding up the
Paul
DVD.
Temple, there it is. There it is. I think mine's over there. Yeah, mine's up.
Now, the first thing I have to say about Paul Temple is that the theme tune was done by Ron Grainer of Doctor Who, The Prisoner, Man in a Suitcase, Tales of the Unexpected fame. Steptoe and Sani did as well. He did loads of theme tunes. Now, the funny thing is, I think his theme tune for this is a bit like Tales of the Unexpected, isn't it? It's a
yeah, it's. I would call it, dare I say, it's generic sort of 60s theme tune, isn't it?
For a series that ended up going out in the 70s, I suppose.
Yeah.
And also the incidental music, Benji, is by Dudley Simpson, and you said it wasn't last week. It is.
It doesn't sound very Dudders, does it?
It's minimalist Dudders. Yes.
I mean, yeah, I suppose it's very of its time, isn't it?
And it's before he got into his real Doctor Who style. Yes, this is a bit like some of the stuff he did for Ambassadors of Death, I think.
Yes, you're totally...
not the kind of...
Yeah, it's far more stripped back.
Yes. Anyway, what are we talking just about the music for? So we watched the first surviving episode, Games People Play. What did you think, Benji?
I thought it was very, very compelling television, actually. I really enjoyed it. I watched it on a train. Funnily enough, I watched it the first time on a train and then watched it the second time on a train as well. And I was absolutely just gripped to it because it's such a weird, especially this episode, it's such a weird
it is, isn't it?
Story all about, this rich actor who has to take games to the next level, doesn't he?
Yes, he's got a bunch of sycophants. Where is it set? They're on holiday somewhere. Malta. Favourite place for the BBC to go and film. Yeah.
A nice and easy one. All shot on location as well.
Yes, this is one of the unique... I don't think... Because it's normally Paul Temple is a typical BBC production of the time. All the interiors are done in the studio, multi-camera, creaking sets and everything, with location stuff done on 16mm film. But this is all shot on 16mm, isn't it? And they've gone to Malta and they've shot the entire thing, including actual interiors. Yeah, I wonder why they made that decision. So it looks more expensive than the rest of the series does, doesn't it?
Oh, it's a big, lovely, expensive. Dare I say it looks like an ITV series. Like it's got that it's less studio bound and more kind of out in the open, and it works to its favour. If you were to watch this as a standalone episode, you would think it's just a great thing. And I personally think the writing in it is spot on. I think it's everything about it. It's acted brilliantly. There's not really, I can't really say there's a weak link in this particularly, because it's just an incredible journey, throughout which twists and turns, and you have no idea what's going on.
Yes, it's quite disturbing, isn't it? George Baker plays the sort of the actor, the star who's frightened of falling from grace, isn't he? And he's surrounded by these sycophants. He's got his ex-wife, or his wife, but who he's sort of estranged from because he blatantly has a girlfriend as well. The girlfriend, I can't remember the name of the actress, but she played Sharon in the Fen Street Gang and Please Sir, if you're aware of either of those classic ITV sitcoms.
Yeah, no. Classic.
Sharon, she's all sort of chewing gum. And she
Penny
plays...
Spencer? Or was that the other one?
I don't know. No, there's Angela Brown, is it?
Yes, so she's very creepy in this.
Well, she was actually Francis Matthews' wife.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So,
really?
Francis Matthews, who plays Paul Temple. It was very interesting watching the DVD box set interview with Francis Matthews, and he said the reason he got the job was that Francis Durbridge, who created the character of Paul Temple, said to him many years before, I'm trying to get them to do a TV series of it, and I would love you to play it. And then it came up years later, and he thinks that, Francis Durbridge put in a good word. The funny thing is that Francis Durbridge wasn't allowed to write any of the episodes. Even though he created Paul Temple and had written him on the radio for years, and also there were some Paul Temple films as well, starring, I can't remember who.
How utterly bizarre.
Yeah.
I suppose they might have just had a very fixed idea of how it should be.
So you don't get the full strength. I mean, I've done a lot of Francis Durbridge theatre plays, and they are, I would say, quite bland and quite lowbrow. But nonetheless, in spite of all that, absolute page turners, and audiences love them. I mean, when I first did one, I did a play called Suddenly at Home, and I remember thinking, this is awful. But I fell in love with it after the audience fell in love with it. I thought, it doesn't matter what I think. They love every scene drop is an ooh. I've mentioned this before, I'm sure. Every time a scene ends, you discover that someone isn't who they said they were, or someone has a motive you're not aware of. And it's a shame we never got any of that in the Paul Temple TV series. Although this is a very experimental series. There's an episode called, what's it called? Something about pleading guilty or something. Oh, what is it? Well, it's done as it's a live TV debate about crime. And they invited an audience in and everything. Maybe it's The Quick and the Dead. I don't know. Do you know which one it is?
But I mean, I think with all of this kind of this series, it feels, certainly with this episode as a piece, it is experimental, and it's quite far. It's quite sort of quite out there, isn't it? It's kind of it's throwing around a lot of weird, risky sort of like the whole games thing is it sinister or isn't it sinister? Because there are, it's all, it's a game, and in the end,
well, they take his wife away, don't they? They take Paul Temple's wife Steve away, and just to have a jolly on the little island with them. But then they start to sort of, they play mind games with her, don't they? And
gradually it's like peeling layers off, isn't it? Gradually you're getting more and more into this sort of dark plot of what are they doing, what are their motives, and it's they're a horrible bunch, aren't they?
One of them is Kai from Arthur of the Britons, isn't he?
Yeah, yes, it is. Yeah, he was also in
He's going around in a very tight, small pair of swimming trunks.
Speedos. Yeah, he was also in James Bond, wasn't he? I think it was For Your Eyes Only. Michael Gothard.
Well, I feel that those Speedos should be for someone else's eyes.
Well, yeah, there is an awful lot of Speedos going on in this, isn't there? I mean, everybody's dressed. The outfits in it are pretty risky. There's a lot of, like crop tops and things. You think, wow, this is quite out there for the BBC.
Well, this is meant to be adult BBC drama after the watershed, I think.
A lot for the dads in there, isn't there? And actually for the mums, as well.
Yes, it's I mean, I do think it's a little bit dry and it's a little bit slow, but I think it's beautifully, stylishly done, isn't it? And Francis Matthews is a fantastic leading man. Well,
he's brilliant. He's great in it, and interesting how you don't get a lot of him until about halfway through.
Yeah.
You've got a whole story where he's just sort of back at the other island saying, yes, should I get the ferry or not?
Yes.
But then later on, he steps into the, it's when he arrives at the house and says, well, I'd like to, because I know what we'll name the game, we'll name it Hate.
Hate, yes.
And it's really, and then right from there, you think he's in control now. He's totally in control.
Yes,
I think we'll stay on.
Yes. You find he's totally reassuring as a leading man, isn't he?
He's great. I mean, Francis Matthews is just brilliant. He's one of the greats of that era, and he everything he plays, I think he does a good job with.
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing I'd say is that he had a bit of a dodgy haircut in this, but apart from that,
well, it's obviously very windy in Malta, isn't it?
Yeah, it would have been off season, wouldn't it? Straight away.
And so everyone's hair is being blown all over the place. When hair's blown around a lot, it sort of becomes kind of a bit chunky and weird. And everyone's hair looks like that. Well, they obviously didn't have the option of waiting for the weather. So they're desperately all trying to look like it's lovely and luxurious. And I think they're probably all quite cold and uncomfortable.
Definitely. But, it's a jolly, isn't it? It's a nice jolly.
You got a favourite bit from it? I mean, you've told us about the bit where Paul Temple turns the tables on the bumptious actor and his friends.
There were two bits that I really liked, actually. I love the revelation at the end, the whole, who fired
no one knows, do
and
we?
Nobody knows, and I thought that was very clever. I also like the bit, actually, I quite like the idea when they said, we're going to drive the car, and I'm going to be blindfolded, and you've got to tell us where you are, and that level, and he's watching on, and it's like, that is just, I thought it was very clever and quite tense in the sense that he's completely powerless in this situation and she's right there, and I just thought, wow, they could go off the side of a cliff for all I know.
Yeah, that was my favourite bit. I thought that was beautifully done. And the relationship between Paul Temple and Steve is not is beautiful, actually. It's very simple and they have a very strong relationship, and she
loves him, doesn't she? She loves him.
Yeah. It's great. I'm just trying to remember the name of the guy who played him in the films. I can't remember his name, but he played famously in My Funny Little World Greg. Was it Greg Mortimer in in Crossroads, when Meg
Crossing.
Richardson became Meg Mortimer, and I think his name was Greg, and yeah, he was an old heartthrob from the 1950s. I can't remember his name.
There's a lot of actors. It says I've just gone in. Carl Bernard, Hugh Morton, Barry Morse,
Victor Bergman.
Howard Marion Crawford, Kim Peacock, Peter Koch, Anthony Hulme, John Bentley,
Crawford
I think. Logan, John Bentley. Good names. John Bentley was... Yeah, Crossroads, there we go.
Yeah.
Meg Richardson's ill-fated new husband in soap opera Crossroads.
Yeah. It's weird that I remember.
Well,
that,
no, we all do.
isn't it?
Yeah, but I'm the same. I'm the same with Corrie. You know, because I watch all the old Corries. I'll see people be like, "Oh yeah, that was so and so in Coronation Street." And they'll be like, "What?" That was before they got this amazing, massive role that everybody knows them for. I'm like, "Oh no, he played a postman." You know, like,
Yes, so loads of people have played Paul Temple, but possibly nobody after this series. I don't think Paul Temple has ever been brought back since then.
it's very good. You know, there is a level of kind of. It feels very loose as to what it is and what he is and what he does, but it's just kind of good, isn't it? It's just good, really good viewing. It's just a great character.
Did you dip into any of the other episodes?
Not had a chance yet,
No.
but honestly, it happened
With
twice.
the
'Cause
old studio stuff, it's all a bit, you know.
does it turn a little
backdrops.
bit?
Does a bit. I mean, and also they do that funny thing, which was often done in the early 70s, of mixing between film and studio stuff, and studio stuff that's meant to be outside.
Oh,
and
gosh,
you know,
yeah.
and so they'll cut from one shot. There's someone on location talking, and then the other person turns around and they're on a set at BBC Television Centre, and they cut between the two, and you think, "Whoa, this isn't working."
Oh gosh, yeah. I suppose at the time they didn't even think that people would be considering that.
No,
But of course, it's obvious, isn't it? You see that. I mean, everybody knows a fake backdrop and a couple of crummy plant pots, don't they?
Yes, I'm afraid so. I mean, they used to do that on the Avengers, but since it was all shot on film, it wasn't quite so. Yeah, they did a lot of on a location and then close-ups in front of a matte background sort of thing. Especially in that golfing episode I mentioned a few podcasts back, there was a lot of. They do all the scenes in long shot on location, and then they cut in for the close-ups in the studio later, and you can tell the difference, but it's not so jarring because it's all on film. And
when
black
it's
and white, so you
acceptable,
can't
isn't it?
tell the difference in colour temperature quite so, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and
light.
quality and movement and frames and everything.
Yes.
Different kettle of fish. Well, I'll give this a straight 5 out of 5. Actually,
Wow.
It's a high one for me because I just really enjoyed it. Because I just finished watching. I watched a really good episode of Survivors, the one with Brian Blessed and the train, where he plays a macho man and he can't perform with ladies, so to speak, and so he has to counteract that by being this butch macho fighter, and eventually, you know, they have to bring him down to size. So I watched that and was already in a good mood. Then I put on Paul Temple and just sat there, and when it finished, it finished perfectly in time when I rolled into the station. I remember I sat for an extra minute just afterwards, just, you know, watching the credits. But I just remember thinking, this is a great bit of television. I took something from it, and I came away and I thought that was a really good show. I enjoyed that because it got me. I was using my brain. I was thinking. I was getting into it, and I didn't know what was going on at times. And it was great telly. 5 out of 5 for me.
Brilliant.
Surprise top mark there. So you didn't expect that, did you?
I have to say I'm going to be controversial because I'm going to give it a really solid and well-meant 3 exclamation marks.
Fine. Yeah, there's nothing
Because
wrong with
I think it's great, but it just doesn't set me afire. But I think it's well done, and I think it's worth watching, and I will certainly watch more episodes. But yeah, So there we are.
There we are. Well, I'd like to take this moment. I had a great experience
Oh, yes.
on Monday, where I was invited up, where we both were. You sadly couldn't come,
Yes.
Nick, because you were busy at the time. But we were invited up by Network Distributing to see the fantastic new Blu-ray restoration of Monty Python's Flying Circus. And it was absolutely, I can tell you this honestly, it was absolutely wonderful to see it. Now, the work in which they put into actually restoring this material in such a way. It looks just superb, especially when you've grown up like me, with seeing it on the VHS releases and things where it's just all washed out. And you can finally see some of these shots and the directing which they were doing, certainly in the Series 3, the stuff on location, they're really trying to make it look good. And now, because of the fantastic team behind it who've restored it, it really brings out the what they're trying to do, and it looks brilliant.
Oh, I'm so annoyed I missed it. And it would be lovely to come along and see the guys and Tim Beddoes, who is the boss at Network. He told me ages ago that they were going to do this. I was very excited about it then, because Monty Python's such a big thing in my life.
Yeah, mine. But they've absolutely knocked it out of the park. And I think the other thing as well, and this is perfect actually, following on from the conversation we just had, in that, because obviously there's film that you can really do a great job at restoring and upscaling. Interesting enough with this, a lot of the stuff recorded on tape in the studio looks really, really good. And afterwards I was chatting to a few different people around, Rick Davey of The Unmutual, who is a regular listener to this podcast. And but we were saying that, the thing about it is that even the tape stuff looks really good, because I've sort of not had much of a chance to look at like the new Doctor Who things where they've used a lot of tape and upscaled it. But I have to say the upscaling just looks great. If anything, I came away, strangely enough, more in awe of the fact that the tape stuff looks so brilliant. It's really, power to them. But I highly recommend you get your hands on it, because it's just, if you like Monty Python, then it's great. But the sheer volume of material that has been restored, and some of it unseen, some of it from the archives which they've managed to add back in, things that were cut for timing purposes and stuff like that.
Wow.
Have been added in. And some stuff that was cut because it was a little bit close to the mark. So watching it back, it was a really great. It was a wonderful thing to see, and it just goes to show that if something is given to the right team with the right at the right time with the right interests, you can pull together something like this. It's well worth having, and it's definitive, in my opinion, way to watch.
So this is the work of Paul Venices, is it?
Yes, indeed, yeah.
Yeah, brilliant.
And also, hold on, I'll get the where is it?
When you say that stuff was close to the mark, which mark was it close to?
Mark Hampson, the bass player of Red Was Here. Close to being slightly too controversial. Yes, it's Jonathan Wood. Also was heavily involved in the restoration aspect of it as well. But just absolutely remarkable stuff. So, and the box is really cool as well that it comes in, because it comes in this wonderful sort of very Monty Python like package where when you open it, it sort of all just falls out like brah. It's all kind of it's really cool. It's a really, really well made box set there. So really recommend that one.
Didn't you meet someone there who was having an event that people might be interested in?
Yes, I met a chap called Henry Holland, who previously worked for Cult TV and various things, and there's an event that is being held at the Cinema Museum, which is near Kennington on Northern Line, and it's on the Saturday the 23rd of November at 8 p.m. And it's Julian Holloway, who was in the Sylvester McCoy story Survival, and he'll be doing a career interview on stage, being interviewed by Dick Fiddy from the BFI.
Well,
so get down to that one. It's all these events. These events, when you go to them, the career interview, you've not been to them before. And Rick Davey does a lot of these things at his events, where you're interviewing different stars and learning about their careers. It's fascinating. They're really good evenings to go to. And so this one at the Cinema Museum is definitely worth going to. So check it out if you get a chance, or if you're in London.
Brilliant.
Give it a go.
Lovely. Nice plugs, yes.
Nice plugs.
Should we,
ear plugs.
Ear plugs.
Come over here.
Should we call Jamie Anderson?
Let's call Jamie, yeah. Doobly-doo. Doobly-dee.
Oh, so it said he's unavailable. That must mean he's on a call.
Crikey.
He sent a message.
It's just abuse.
Sorry, on urgent call now.
Crikey.
Let me know when it's over.
Well, whilst we're going on there, I've just got my copy of Wurzel Gummidge: The Christmas Special on DVD here, restored from its original, from the original master copies. So it's the first of the Wurzels to be restored, but I'm quite disappointed because they're releasing the whole box set of Wurzel Gummidge, all the original episodes in there.
Yes.
But this is the only one that they've decided to restore. So we've got this wonderful, colourful, gorgeous-looking Christmas special, which is all film and looks wonderful. But they've just used the same. They've just sort of got the release out there, and so whereas I was going to pre-order immediately. Completely pointless now. Quite disappointed. I just thought I'd voice my opinion on that because I kind of feel like it's a missed opportunity. You know,
it must
I wouldn't
be
have
a
bought
financial thing. I mean, they have got all the negatives, haven't they? They could strike
everything.
new
Yeah.
prints.
Stuart Manning sourced them all. You know, and so because it's the interesting thing about Wurzel Gummidge is that it was originally when it was on telly, it was really colourful back in the day.
Yes.
It was really colourful. But of course, as you'll remember, Nick, when we watched the first episode, Wurzel's Washing Day, it's incredibly washed out, isn't it? It looks borderline black and white.
Wurzel's Washing Day washed it out.
It did, yeah, but it's all down to the fact that that's just the transfers. So very sad to see that I'm sure it's financial, but very sad to see that that's not the case because, well, they've lost out on my money. I bought this one, I'm not going to buy it all again just to get it in a fancy box. But if it was restored, I would have, absolutely without question, would have bought it.
Oh, maybe they will.
Yeah,
maybe they will. The thing I wanted to talk to Jamie about is that we were talking about, the three of us getting together and getting an Airbnb or something and going to stay somewhere.
Yeah, it would be a lovely idea, wouldn't it?
I suppose we can't do it before Christmas now. It's too late, isn't it, really?
Possibly. I mean, I don't know. Depends, really. Depends, A, on how many places are available, and B, what the prices are like closer to Christmas.
Yeah. Well, I was hoping to talk to Jamie about that.
Curses, but who knows?
And the annoying thing is we were talking to him before this podcast, weren't we, when we were having a little tea break.
Yeah, typical. It's always the way, isn't it, though?
But it's the way with Jamie and his high-flying life, trying to cut deals and make programs. And
where would we get the Airbnb? Where are you thinking?
I've no idea.
Somewhere completely out of the ordinary, I think would be funny.
Yeah, something quirky.
Yeah, like
and not too hellish for us to get to.
Honestly, random Airbnb generator.
Is there one? Well, so no sign of Jamie.
Never mind, maybe next time, I guess.
And we still don't know what we're going to do about getting together on an Airbnb thing or something.
We'll find a way. It's a shame I couldn't get a random generator to work because that would have been really good fun.
So what are we going to do next week?
Next week, eh? Hold on, I've got a random. It has just come up with something random for me now. There you go. But it's. I suppose really I should have not put. It says where anywhere, so I clicked it and it came up with Sardinia. Well, might be a bit too.
So next week we'll be coming to you from Sardinia,
live from Sardinia, sardines.
I don't even know where Sardinia is. Actually, isn't that awful? Where is it?
We could say here's one there: House at the Falls in Transylvania. £23 a night in a little cottage in Transylvania.
My goodness, that sounds terrifying.
Where
is Sardinia?
I'm
glad you don't know either. I was feeling particularly stupid then.
Italia. Italia.
Of course.
Sardinia is a large Italian island in the Mediterranean Sea.
Yes. So what are we going to do next? We're not going to Sardinia. What are we going to do next week?
Next week, interesting. I don't know. We could do a what we've been watching. We could do a commentary. We could do another thing. What do you fancy?
Well, the easy thing to do would be what we've been watching, because we haven't been saying that for the last couple of things. Should we do what have you been watching?
What have I been watching? Coronation Street, the old one.
I've been watching.
I have been watching things. What have I been watching?
I've been watching the revamp of Lost in Space again in anticipation of the new series coming in January. So I can certainly talk about that, listeners.
I watched last night. Actually, I watched Dr. Crippen, the movie with Donald Sutherland in, which is quite good. Yeah.
Okay. Right.
It was on Talking Pictures, so I recorded that and put that in there. So I was like, yeah, why not?
His Dark Materials has been on. I've watched the first episode of that.
I've been carrying on with The Good Place. Actually, I'll have to surprise you with what I've been watching, because I can't really think off the top of my head. You see,
well, I'm just mentioning a few things so that Colin Smith will know what to put in the cover.
I watched Survivors with old Brian Blessed, which was
There's a whole load of things, Colin, for you to choose from here to put on the.
Alternatively, just a rubber duck will do.
Yeah,
that's fine.
That'll make it look like we've been watching The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which is not the case. What was the other thing? For All Mankind, the Apple TV thing. I haven't subscribed, but they give you a free episode. But then when you've had the free episode, they give you another free episode. But then they don't give you a third free episode. So I'm not sure.
Cheeky.
I'm not sure whether I'm going to get that. But anyway,
I've got no reason. Especially now they've announced BritBox is coming on Boxing Day. It's like, well,
there you go.
Hence, Boxing Day, very good. They've got all Doctor Who on. All classic Doctor Who is going to be on BritBox.
Brilliant.
So that just makes my life easier.
Yeah.
How
much is it going to be? $4.99? Is it a month?
I reckon it'll be more. I don't know.
Gee.
How much is BritBox UK? It's a very convoluted podcast, isn't it?
Yes.
BritBox.co.uk. How much does it cost? £5.99 allegedly.
Okay.
At launch, so that'd be interesting.
All right then. That's it for this week.
Yes, here we are.
We'll be talking about what we've been watching. Also, of course, we'll be reading out your emails sent to podcast@nicholasbriggs.com. So do send them in with suggestions for things for us to talk about. We've had a few good suggestions recently, or any observations you'd like to make about anything. Goodbye. Pressing stop now. Ka-ching.